Blake Griffin showed up there as well. Well, we want to go to the man who was there. He's an attorney, but a Clipper season ticket holder, Brian Claypool, who's been with us and really bringing in a passion to this story because he's there and he loves the team. What was it like to be there?
Mike, it was like being at a civil rights rally. It was an experience where you want to lock it up in a time bottle and keep it forever. This game last night was bigger than just a game. It was everybody at this game realized that they were there for a reason bigger than the game. They were there to support the elimination of racism in our society. And you know what, the opponent last night, Mike, it wasn't really the Golden State Warriors, it was Donald Sterling. I really believe that a lot of those Clipper players in their mind, when they saw a Golden State jersey, they were thinking Donald Sterling. They want to prove this guy wrong, and they want to show him what class is like. They want to show him how to be dignified because he needs a lesson in class and dignity.
There you go. And someone who's been dignified, Doc Rivers, the coach of the Clippers. You saw him before the game, pumping fists and handshakes and just the emotions from him as well. And you mentioned the Warriors. Brian, I don't know if you'd heard this, but the Warriors were ready to walk off the court. If the punishment was not sufficient, they were going to let the ball tip up. This is reporting from our colleague David Aldridge from TNT. And then they were going to walk off the court. That does not surprise me. That speaks to the serious nature of this issue. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, Mike, and that proves the point I made yesterday, which is unless Sterling is stripped of this team completely and he sells the team, there will be no NBA because these players are not going to play if he's allowed to continue to be an owner. Let me share a quick story about Doc Rivers. I have never seen him so emotional, Mike. Toward the end of the game, he was looking into the stands, pumping, high-fiving, complete strangers, and toward the end, he high-fived every single player on that bench, and he's never, ever done that before.
Yeah,
clearly, it was an emotional time.
They may ride this to a playoff run, one more game, and they bounce the Warriors out, but we'll see how it plays out. All right, so what's next in this whole saga? The NBA Board of Governors, will they vote, and when will it all go down? So let's get the timeline for you here, and we'll welcome back our guests. Brian Claypool, Joey Jackson's going to join us as well. So here's what we have. Commissioner Adam Silver, he has 3 days to provide Donald Sterling with a written copy of the charges. That's one. Sterling then has 5 days to answer. There'll be a special hearing of the Board of Governors, and it's going to be held no more than 10 days after Sterling's reply. So if you add all that up, rough estimate, by May 16th, you could have a vote. A couple of other notes. If Sterling doesn't reply or doesn't come to the hearing, the league's constitution says that's an admission of the charges. And so there's a point. And after all the evidence is presented, the board votes. Three-quarter vote needed. So of the 29, rough estimate, you need 22 votes. And he is out. The league then takes control of the team, and they'll look for a buyer. Is that the way it's going to play out, all nice and tidy by May 16th? Or is it going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight? I mentioned it. Our HLN legal analyst, great criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson's with us, along with attorney and Clippers season ticket holder Brian Claypool back with us as well. Joey, is he going to fight? Is this going to get ugly or what?
Well, if it did get ugly, he'll be on the losing side of it, and so he would be wise to get out and get out now. So let's talk about why, Mike, it would be wise for him to step off. From a settlement perspective, I see that forthcoming, and here's why. The reality is that he's banned for life. He's not welcome to his own games. He's certainly not welcome to any other NBA games, and so therefore, do you want to be an owner of such a team? If I'm advising him, I'd say if you even win, it's a Pyrrhic victory. You'll have no value at all. Number two, if you think about it, employees are not going to play for him, work for him. Fans are not going to support him. And so on the financial question of the value of his franchise, it would plummet. Number three, Mike, if he were to litigate the matter, litigation takes time. He's 81 years old, and so these things play out over several years. And so do you really want to be involved in litigation that'll make lawyers rich and that I think you will lose at the end of the day? And so I do think he's huddling up with his attorneys. I'm certain there's ego involved, but there's a practical side to this. And the practical side says step out quietly, and step out now.
Okay, let's go to Brian Claypool. Brian, I mean, he could file some kind of court injunction even afterward to prevent the NBA from expelling him, right? He could fight. He's a fighter and a litigious guy at that.
Mike, let me give Joey a high five. Joey, high five. You hit the nail on the head. Donald Sterling is toast in this case. He can file anything he wants in court, but it's going to get thrown out. I'll tell you why. He has signed on to a Constitution. He has agreed to abide by the rules of the Constitution within the NBA. It's not much unlike you, Mike, or Joey, or I going to a doctor and signing an arbitration clause where you agree to waive your right to a jury trial. Donald Sterling has waived his right to go into court and file all these bogus and frivolous motions and try to get injunctions. He will lose. He has no standing, Mike, to go into court and do this. And by the way, the sooner the NBA gets these charges to Sterling, the better, because it preempts his ability to get together with his posse of lawyers and fight this.
Okay. Well, good stuff. So both Joey and Brian agree he may try and fight, but it's a losing effort for Donald Sterling. We'll see, though. And both guys are going to hang around for some more. Speaking of that, Brian, again, Brian's a season ticket holder for the Clippers, and we've mentioned Chris Paul. You had a chance. I mean, you got some pretty good seats. You talked to Chris Paul's dad through all this. What do you have to say to you?
Well, Mike, I went to the game last night, and as we were approaching the end of the game, I was collecting my thoughts, thinking, what am I going to say to the family? Because I walked right past them as I'm leaving the game. And, I started chatting with Chris's mom, and then I brought up a piece of scripture. And I said, the Bible says that there is peace in every circumstance. I said, Mr. and Mrs. Paul, just we got to think positive. There's something good is going to come out of this, something positive. We're going to make change to eliminate racism. And Mr. Paul looked at me, and he said very softly, that's when God arrives. It was breathtaking. It was just unbelievable, Mike. Very inspirational.
Wow. And we saw Chris Paul before the game praying during the national anthem. There was an emotion really from deep down in. Hey, Kevin, thank you. Brian, you as well. We want
that one of many things the First Amendment does is protect unpopular speech. And what Mr. Sterling was engaging in that private conversation was protected speech. So the outcome is going to be this. He's going to litigate this, and he's going to prevail. And the reason is, I don't think you can have a valid contract that abrogates your constitutional rights.
Hey, what about the consequences of free speech? I mean, you say something and you're the owner of a team, and, I could rattle off all the ramifications of what he said, but shouldn't there be a consequence? Because the NBA says yes, this isn't a court of law. We heard it. The commissioner said it's his views. That's that. Your thoughts, Jack?
Well, surely under our system of capitalism, there can be consequences, but the First Amendment should protect you from persecution. But that doesn't stop the fans from not going or the sponsors from dropping out.
Yeah, which is part of the consequences we saw. Jack, thanks for the call. Brian Claypool's back with us. He's an attorney and a season ticket holder for the Clippers. Again, the NBA laid it out pretty clear. It's not a court of law. His views, they were said, damaging to the league. Therefore, he's out. Your thoughts, Brian?
Mike, this is really important for all the viewers to understand. The U.S. constitutional rights are only afforded when there is state involvement. For example, the government, state or federal government. The NBA is a private club. Therefore, you're not afforded First Amendment rights within the NBA. So Donald Sterling will lose if he tries to enforce any legal action based on a violation of his First Amendment rights. The First Amendment doesn't apply here.
Got it. Well, I mentioned what Adam Silver said, the NBA commissioner. Let's listen to it again. He was asked pretty much that question. Here's what he had to say yesterday.
Whether or not these remarks were initially shared in private, they are now public, and they represent his views.
Boom.
Let him first cast a stone. Everybody has a little racism in their life, in the confines of their own home, and that's what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? Yes, that it was made public. But I'm saying that we are hypocrites if nobody does this. I'm saying within our own confinement of our own homes. I mean, let's just get real. Mm-hmm. Why don't we say something about the KKK that's running around here, or a person that is going to jail for 20 years that didn't murder somebody, and someone who murdered somebody don't go to jail. So come on, let's educate this man. Everybody deserves a second chance.
Well, I think, and thanks for the phone call. You bring up a lot of points there about forgiveness. And I heard Isaiah Thomas say, hey, yeah, we're about compassion, but Brian Claypool is back with us. When you own a team and these comments affect not only your team, but you potentially other players from other teams were ready to walk out and not play. starting with the Golden State Warriors last night, right, Brian? This had ramifications beyond the Clippers and Mr. Sterling.
Right, Mike. There's a vast difference between harboring racism in your private home or if you're running a donut shop in Michigan. The big difference between that and publicly displaying patent overt racism as the leader and owner of an NBA team, because it impacts people nationwide and potentially internationally. It tarnishes the reputation of the league. It also sends a message that racism is tolerated within the league. No players will ever play again in this league. You made a great point, Mike. What if all the players boycott? Then you have no league left. So there have to be consequences for this then.
Yeah, there you go. Let's get another call in, Brian. Diane's with us in Alaska. Hey, Diane, your thoughts?
I'm a black female, and I do not condone racism at all. My concern is, where do we start saying we're gonna? Well, you make these comments, and we're going to, say you're investing. We're gonna, just vote you out, saying, that's kind of like his investment. Are we going to take away buyer's choice and everything? Was he fair? Did his racism discriminate against players? That is my concern. How far did his racism go within the league? Was it?
Yeah, you want him out, though. You'd like to see him gone. Is that right, Diane?
I would like to make sure everything is fair. Was he fair to his players? Was that just at home? Because I don't agree with the caller before. I don't believe everybody has a little bit of racism.
Right. I agree as well.
I do not.
I agree with you.
I love all people, and I'm going to love him, even though he, has the hate that he has with him. But are they going to punish him for being unfair in the league?
Hey, Diane, thanks for the call. I want to get Brian in on this. Brian, you got about 15 seconds. Yeah. Well, could he argue, hey, I didn't run the team in a racist way. I hired a black coach and a black general manager?
No, Mike. The problem is he publicly displayed his racism. And number two, he's branding a company. It's like running a franchise. And he has to abide by the bylaws of it.
Damage to the team and to the league.